All right. So, welcome back to a new week. Hopefully, your spring break was, enjoyable, restful. Got to be outside some. I'm recording this prior to spring break, but I assume my daily activity will be, or will have been, the same as it's been. Spending time outside. Anyway, we're looking at starting up a new unit, and with this new unit, I'm going to be accompanying your regular PowerPoint slides with my lectures, because I feel you've been missing out on some high quality input that you otherwise would have received if classes were still in normal session. So, this 25-minute video or so is designed to accompany the first 5 of the 7 or 8 slides that you had downloaded on forensic anthropology. Okay, so I'm just going to dive right in. Forensic anthropology is a study of bones, basically, bones as a body of evidence and their relationship to crime. Now, there's a lot of stuff we can learn from just bones themselves. Bones oftentimes can last hundreds of years in less than ideal conditions, yet still yield valuable information as to the identity of the person to whom those bones once belonged. In many cases, it can, or they can be used to determine cause of death, whether someone has a bullet wound or a bludgeoning. These violent acts that end the lives of people oftentimes will leave significant impacts on their skeleton. And there's a couple of goals that forensic anthropology is designed to achieve. We consider the skeleton as evidence, or bones as evidence, as a medical legal situation, meaning a medical condition or a medical study with legal ramifications. This is all referring to the first slide after the cover. So there are 3 main goals that a forensic anthropologist would be called in to an investigation to achieve, and they're listed, numbered 1, 2, and 3. First off, you want to be able to identify the body, and in many cases, if a body is long dead, or even recently dead given certain conditions, the only thing left of that body is going to be the skeleton, or in many cases, partial skeletal remains. And it's important to know something about the identity of that person before they died. For an example, if there's a missing person, this person, say a female, 5'4", has been missing for a few months, and human remains are discovered somewhere, it's important to be able to determine, is it that missing female? And there are so many factors that we'll look at that can lead an anthropologist and further investigation to a definitive answer. So it's important to be able to know who that body belonged to. Okay. Another major goal of a forensic anthropologist is to determine the cause of death and what happened to that body at the time of death and the period between that time and discovery of the remains. So Determining a cause of death. Was this person murdered? Was this person accidentally killed? Was this person a suicide victim? Or was this person a natural death who was buried in a graveyard and due to severe weather conditions, Hurricane Floyd, for example, causes massive flooding and legitimately upturned graveyards to where there were skeletal remains around our local area that didn't necessarily mean that nefarious business had occurred. So, understanding what happened to the body post-mortem to the time of discovery is super important in terms of determining whether there was a crime or if this evidence is even related to a crime investigation. And the third goal is to definitively determine the post-mortem interval. Post-mortem interval, how long has that person been dead? Super important. In many cases, bones could be around for years, decades, or longer. And if you're looking at a recent crime and bones that have been around for decades, there's no relationship. Also, determining a post-mortem interval, given the time it is currently, you can rewind back to likely a time of death, or at least a reasonable estimate of time of death, in terms of determining suspects. Alibis. Was your primary suspect in prison at the time of the death of this person? Was your primary suspect in the area? So understanding how long remains may have been in the environment is a crucial role of the forensic anthropologist. Okay, we're going to be looking at all of the different things, characteristics that can be determined by studying bones. The best case scenario would be having an entire skeleton. But unfortunately, most common, you're going to be finding partial remains. And this is because in the wild, in the environment, scavengers, weather, all sorts of factors will oftentimes change the condition and take away parts of the skeleton. We have 206 bones or so just, cruising around in our body, most of them attached to something. And when the soft tissue decomposes or is being eaten by scavengers, insects, small mammals, large mammals, parts of that feast is oftentimes carried away. You also have crazy people that, dismember a body, so the discovery of just partial remains, is a result, because if they dismember a body, they'll oftentimes dispose of different parts in different places. If you have a body that was disposed of in water, a body of water, parts will drift away in currents post soft tissue decomposition. So working with partial skeletal remains is really the most common media through which a forensic anthropologist is going to determine as much as they possibly can. Okay, so things that we can determine by skeletal remains, quite a few. I'll start with just an overview. Age determination is a major goal in determining the identity of a body. Was this a juvenile? Was this a young adult? Middle-aged person? Geriatric? You can imagine there are some significant skeletal differences between a toddler and a retiree. and major skeletal differences throughout development. And probably one of the most obvious age determinants is dentition. We'll look at teeth. Everybody has deciduous teeth as they start teething as an infant, and that first set of teeth, your baby teeth, as they say, does or do fall out as adult teeth start to erupt and push them out. So if you have craniofacial bones, if you have a jawbone, a mandible or a maxillae having the teeth in it, looking at what stage of development the teeth are, it's going to determine a class of age that you're going to be able to determine at time of death. How old was this person? After the obvious deciduous teeth loss and adult teeth eruption, you also have a age point at about 16 to 18, your guys' age, where wisdom teeth come in. Your wisdom teeth are molars in the way back that erupt late in adolescent development, and oftentimes will be growing off angle, pushing your adult teeth forward or misaligning them, which oftentimes require orthodontic work. A lot of folks get their wisdom teeth removed because they crowd their regular dentition. A person under 15 or under 16 is not going to have erupted wisdom teeth yet. Those wisdom teeth are still going to be embedded in the jaw underneath soft tissue. Our wisdom teeth our craniofacial bones have evolved over time as a result of an aberrant gene that codes for the masseter muscle development that just doesn't fire. This gene doesn't turn on the development of craniofacial bones, doesn't turn on the development of masseter muscles, which then allows cranial bones to expand, and doesn't stimulate your jaw bones, maxillae and mandible, to fully develop. Having underdeveloped mandible and maxillae gives us a smaller buccal region, a smaller mouth, and all of the teeth don't necessarily fit. It's a weird little outlier of genetics, but point being, many people do have problems with how they grow in, and they have to be removed. This doesn't happen until about your age. Just before your age. In the 16, 17 range is where you start to notice these issues. Some people, they do grow in straight and don't cause an issue. So, looking at where we are in dental development can give us a reasonable age. After this wisdom teeth window, we also have other clues regarding dental development, such as dental work. If you have a lot of decay, or if you have bridges, if you have braces, those are factors that one can be traced in many cases back to a dentist or a company that made those braces or installed those braces or bridges, and your fillings and such. Dental records are one of the easiest and least expensive methods of identifying skeletal remains. If a person that is suspected dead has been to a dentist, say we think this dead body is the missing girl that I referred to earlier, contacting her dentist. You can get x-rays of her teeth. Forensic anthropologist would x-ray the jawbone, the dentition of the unknown body, and if the dental x-rays match what's on file, that's who it is. It's not all that complicated. So, dentition is very important. Also, as we age, our teeth wear down. Many young people have considerable scalloping on the tips of their incisors. You have sort of little ridges, and over time those ridges wear down just from daily dietary habits. A regular anthropologist uses teeth to study, ancient culture to determine what were parts of their diet, how was their food prepared, and it was used to determine average age groups, I should say, of ancient cultures, ancient civilizations, by simply looking at the wear of their dentition. Okay, so dental stuff is super easy. It's a valuable determinant for age. Another point on this age determination slide is pubic symphysis breakdown. We're going to look at pelvic bones a lot in this unit. The pelvis, your main, hip bones, where your waist is, what your legs connect to, your pelvic complex can give a lot of information about you as a person, or your identity at least. A very valuable age determination characteristic of the pelvis is found in the pubic symphysis. Sounds like synthesis, but it's symphysis with a PH in the middle. Symphysis, it's your first bulleted item on this age determination slide. That pubic symphysis is in the front of your pelvis, and I put my hands like this because this is really the shape, the front of everyone's pelvis. Your pubic bone, what's found just below your navel, about 4 inches down. You can push in, it's all soft tissue, and then if you can push in, hard enough, you can feel, oh yeah, there's bone there. That is the front of your pelvis, and it's called your pubis. And the two sides of the pelvis come together, forming the pubic symphysis. Where those two bones come together, there is a cartilaginous disc in between the two. Just like your vertebral column has discs that cushion the space between every vertebrae in your spine, you got these cartilaginous, mushy discs. The pubic symphysis is no exception. The pubic symphysis is where two bones come together with a cartilaginous disc in between. This allows for some flexion for your locomotion during childbirth with the female pelvis. There has to be some greater flexibility other than that of natural living bone. So having several pieces put together and attached with cartilaginous buffers makes an ideal situation for that little bit of flex that's required for some of these activities. All right. What I mean by breakdown is just like I was talking about scalloped teeth, little tiny ridges at the bottom of your incisors. You have little tiny ridges on the inner surfaces of the pubic symphysis, two sides. And over time, those little scalloped edges wear down and smooth off. And these smoothing rates are universal, regardless of culture or level of activity or really anything else. There is a universal rate of that pubic symphysis breakdown. And we can study hundreds of thousands of cases of pelvises at different ages of death and get a very solid set of incremental age groups related to the level of pubic symphysis breakdown. So even finding just a piece of a pelvis, that which is it contains the pubic bone, one side or the other, can give us a very good, reasonably accurate target of age at death. The second bullet on this slide is auricular surface breakdown. And the auricular surface is the surface of bone on the inside of a ball and socket joint, for example. So in your hip joint, where the head of your femur, the ball, fits into the socket of your pelvis, there's a very smooth crater. And that smooth crater is lined with a meniscus, a little fluid-filled cartilaginous buffer. And as that person lives their life and goes about walking and doing everything else that people do with their legs, a very small amount of friction, constant friction, smooths out that auricular surface. It also, as we age, starts to pick up calcium deposits, bone spurs, as they're sometimes referred. But these little calcium deposits or bone spurs build up typically in folks greater than the age of 30. So by looking at an auricular surface, how smooth it is, or the presence of bone spurs, can give us a reasonable additional age determinant. I talked about the dental stuff, I guess, which is the third bullet. Fourth bullet down is an epiphyseal union. Epiphyseal unions are what we commonly refer to as growth plates. And there's a lot of wives' tales that go around about growth plates. A growth plate is a region of long bones that is cartilaginous in nature. Most of our skeletal system is made primarily of calcium and phosphorus, reasonably hard minerals. But we also have cartilage at the ends, near the ends of all of our long bones. And this cartilage is what we call an epiphyseal union, or a growth plate. The head of your humerus, the top of your upper arm bone, has a rounded surface called the head, and what separates that head from the rest of the ramus, the shaft of your long bone, is a cartilaginous region. And as you age, that cartilage slowly ossifies or calcifies. Same thing, ossification and calcification. The transformation of cartilaginous tissue into bone tissue. As we're younger, these growth plates allow for rapid cell division, rapid elongation of our long bones, growth, and allows for some flexibility. If you've ever seen a toddler fall down on a playground or wherever, falls over, they typically don't shatter into pieces. Toddler bones are more flexible than adult bones, and certainly more flexible, way more flexible, than older adults. A little kid could fall downstairs and, other than a couple of bumps and bruises, generally be okay. If I fall downstairs, I'd shatter into a million pieces, simply because of the condition of an older person's skeleton versus a younger one. So these growth plates allow for some flexibility, allows them to bend more and absorb shock, concussion shock, better than a brittle or a firm bone would. So these epiphyseal unions, growth plates, will show us how long that person has been alive. The percentage of cartilage versus calcium phosphorus combo gives us a reasonable age determination. We also see this in the fontanelles. A newborn baby has soft spots in their skull, and that's where the cranial flat bones fuse as we age. But as an infant, these cranial flat bones have to have a flexible membrane in between them to allow the head to, squeeze together and be able to fit through